Okay, here's a question about infinity. This is the symbol for infinity. So let's say you have your traditional two dimensions. That's x, and that's y. Okay? So everything is relative. So all math is based on the point of origin. So what if we move this point of origin is over here? What's the difference between this point and this point? We can calculate it. Let's say that's 2 spaces or inches. Doesn't matter what measurement we use. Okay? What if your point of origin is always moving? Or where is the point of origin? Problem with the universe as we know it is that this is the Milky Way. Here's the universe. So the end of the universe, if you went to the end, you would come out the other side. Okay? So we can imagine infinity as this big infinite blob. But where's the point of origin? Is it the Big Bang? Or is it here on the outside? Or is it the point at, how do you define it? So all of our math is wrong, because how do you define the point of origin? Okay, that's problem number 1 with math. Where is the origin? Now, problem number 2 is the infinite problem. So let's think about this. Now, let's say you're at 0 and this is 10, okay? This is also known as Zeno's paradox, I think. So let's say you want to go from 0 to 10 in the physical world. Let's say you divide your distance by half. Okay, so half is 5. Difference, 50% of that is about 7.5, and half, and half, and half, and so on. So if you put that over here, just checking if you can see that on a chart, it would look something like this. It would be a logarithm. And that function would never get to 0. So if you wrote it down in numbers, it would be something like 9.9999999, infinite nines, okay? But if you divide infinity by 0, you should have infinity, right? Because if you divide 1 by 0, you should have 1. 1 divided by nothing is something, in other words. So here's the problem with the 9s. So how many 9s do you go out? So what's the difference between this number, including the infinity here, and 10? Or is it the same number? Or is there a certain amount of 9s where that becomes 10? You see, because this will never be 10. And all this math, all this exists between 0 and 1. So let me explain how. If you count from 0 to 1, this is the natural numbers, I think they call it. 1 is the simplest number, 0 is the point of origin. As I explained, origin is the first problem of our math being all wrong. So to go from 0 to 1, let's say again, you count 0.5, 0.75. It's a logarithm. Again, you'll never get to 1 if you go in half. What if you go from 0 to 0.1 and you do the same thing? You just move the decimal. But the point is, there's no distance which you can measure between 0 and 1 if you look at it like this. Because if you keep having it, you'll have this logarithm that'll never get there. It's like Einstein said about the speed of light. As you get closer to the speed of light, your mass gets so great, you'd become infinitely massive. We know we don't want to get off on that tangent there, but it's basically the same thing. So what does superstring theory say about this? That's the topic for the next video, but this is basically the problem. Is that one, you can't define the origin. So we can forget about algebra, calculus, geometry, all the math that we know. Two, you have an infinity exists between 1 and 0. So infinity is everywhere. And then you have the third problem is, if you start using infinity like a number, because there's infinite nines, as I said, from 1 to 0, if you go 0.9999, there's infinite nines to get to 1. So there's infinity just between 0 and 1. So then the problem is you have to account for powers of infinity. You have to in math, or math doesn't work. So what's the difference between 0.99 with 10,000 nines, or 10 million, or 10 to the power infinity, or just infinity? There's got to be a difference between those numbers, right? It's not all just 1 and 0. I mean, if you're building a house, that's not going to make a difference. You can't physically touch this space, but we can easily prove mathematically that it exists, right? So these are the three problems with our math as it is. 1, no origin. 2, infinity is everywhere. And 3, because of these two things, you have to deal with powers of infinity, which is a whole nother topic, but there is a math behind powers of infinity that solves some of those problems. So this is the quandary that I've had all my life, and I'm hoping that someone can solve it. If you have any ideas, put it in the comments or reach out to me with your ideas.